1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to Uncovered Acapella. I'm your host, Brian Michaels. This is the premier acapella podcast featuring only originals, no cover tunes. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Here's Uncovered Acapella. Hello and welcome to another episode of Uncovered Acapella. It's me, Brian Michaels. I join you every Wednesday and bring you usually 3 original acapella songs from 3 completely different artists. But as we've done 1 or 2 times in the past, we've done a few special episodes. If my longtime listeners remember episode 100, where we were joined by Sean Altman and listened to 3 different original songs that he either wrote by himself or had a hand in writing. And I figured with episode 200, I mean, who thought we'd make 200? It's been an interesting year to think that we made 200, and I'm like, I need another special guest. I gotta find someone really cool, and this is someone who, and I'll tell the story how we met once I introduce him, but this is someone who, if it wasn't for him, I would not be here doing this. So for my 200th episode, I am pleased to announce my special guest, Mr. Deke Sharon. How you doing today, sir?
I am doing well and honored to be on the big 200. It's your bicentennial.
It is.
I remember that word from 1976 when I was,
I was 2.
Yeah, exactly. So, congratulations.
Thank you.
Such an incredible service you're doing to the community. And these shows you make are evergreen. People can go back and start listening from episode 1, and they're timeless. There's just always joy in hearing great original acapella music. So thank you for doing this.
No, and like I said, I seriously, without you, I would not be here. And I don't know if I've ever told you the full story on how we originally met. So I'll kind of give the shortened version, but go back to July of 1997. I had just watched the Blenders do a concert at the Fargo Street Fair. And while they were on stage, they were talking about this cool new thing they had called a website. And of course, we're like, wow, cool, whatever, a website. So when I got back to the radio station I was working at, Cool 96.7 in West Fargo, North Dakota, I decided to go onto the computer and find this website the Blenders were talking about. And I couldn't remember how they said to get there. I'm like, well, I know we got this search engine, and a lot of you young people are thinking, I bet he Googled it. No, Google didn't exist. I Alta Vista'd it.
That's right.
I'm sure you got to remember Alta Vista, Deke.
Oh, sure, of course.
So I typed in Blenders Acapella, and surprisingly, theirs wasn't the first site that came up. 2 sites came up before theirs. It was a site for a company called Primarily Acapella and a site for something called CASA, the Contemporary Acapella Society of America. And I had never heard of either of them. I honestly, in my mind, I thought the Blenders were like the only group doing this. And I started going through these 2 sites and seeing all these groups being talked about. I'm like, wow, this is kind of cool. These other groups I honestly thought these other groups are trying to follow in the steps of the Blenders. I mean, I thought the Blenders were the first. I honestly did.
Sure. Well, that's your first point of contact.
Exactly.
And honestly, part of the main reason I started CASA was there was no community for all of this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the funny part was, I had it in my mind, like, all right, I got to hear if these groups are any good. So I emailed both of the contacts on the website, and I got a response back from John. I got a response back from you. And I basically said, hey, this is me. I'm Brian. I work at a radio station. If you send me free CDs, I'll put them on the air. Now, I had no intention of playing them on the air. I honestly thought I was going to get these CDs and be like, they're okay. And within a week, I had 15 CDs in the mail. Between you and John, I had 15 CDs, because I think you had Ken Malicelli send me some stuff also.
Sure.
So I got like the Alley Cats. I got some Kara CDs. I got a couple of House Jack CDs. I think Impact and a few other ones. And I started listening to this stuff, and I'm like, damn, this is some good stuff. This is some.
Right?
It's like, I want to put this on the air. And I actually literally that week went to my station manager and said, I want to start an acapella radio show. And he laughed. He's like, no. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to find a way to do it. And I actually started a show called That Was Then, This Is Now, because I hosted the noon news, weather, and sports. So we were a 50s, 60s, 70s station. So I had an idea. I would play a song from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and a remake of it from the 80s or 90s. And I made sure that every remake I played was acapella.
Good job.
And within about a month, he started getting so many calls and requests about it. He's like, maybe you should do that show.
Good for you.
Yeah, but the funny thing was, when I first listened to the House Jacks, I emailed you and I said, this is really good. I said, but I can't play it because you guys are using a drum machine. And instead of responding to the email, you called me. That was the first time I talked to you. And you're like, hey, Brian, this is Deke Sharon. I'm like, oh, hey, cool. I'm like, I'm like, yeah, sorry, I want to play it. He's like, and you're laughing. You're like, it's not a drum machine. I'm like, there's no way that's the person. He's like, seriously, that's Andrew Chaikin. I'm like, who the hell's Andrew Chaikin?
Yeah.
And you sent me a video to prove it.
Well, and the funny thing is, in the early days, for the first 15, 20 years, we couldn't use any effects whatsoever on anything when we did it live, because no one would ever believe that it was actually us. And people would walk up to the board and they'd be like, what kind of effects boxes are you using, and what playback and triggered drums and all this kind of stuff. And then, we'd have Andrew stand there and just do it for them, off mic, and their minds would be blown. And he got tired of being like, dance monkey dance. But he also realized like how essential it was. And I'm thrilled that there are all these groups doing all kinds of cool things with effects or whatever now. Yeah. But really, if we tried to do that back then, because we had long discussions about it. In fact, there was an argument about one song that went on for days in the wee hours of the morning, Palm Sunday on the first album, the first House Checks album, because we used a distorted guitar effect. It was still all vocals, but by using and singing through a distortion pedal, the question of like, is it still a cappella? Well, yeah. And will anybody ever believe anything we're doing is all vocal?
That's a valid argument.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But in the end, I was like, we've got to push the boundaries. This is our manifesto as to what what can be done with all voices, and let's die on that hill. And I'm glad we did, because it sounds awesome.
Seriously, like to this day, when I talk to people about acapella and they're like, I don't like acapella music. I'm like, have you ever actually listened? One of the first songs still to this day, almost 30 years later, that I still play for them before anything else is Tear Down the Walls. That's not a person. Like, I swear to God it is. And I've hooked a lot of people on acapella because of Tear Down the Walls. So it's one of my favorite songs.
Oh, wow. I'm flattered. Yeah, that was that. And that's why we opened the album with like, okay, here's straight ahead,
in
pop rock,
in
your face, acapella in your face. Exactly. The
awesome.
Early days. Oh, that's great.
So so seriously, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for changing my life, because it led me down a path.
Pleasure. Thank you for paying it forward and making so many new fans, inspiring so many new people to go on the interwebs and do an Alta Vista search. Exactly.
That's right. Cool. Well, definitely got to get into the whole point of the show. Obviously, like my fans know, every week 3 original songs. So in this one, we're going to pick songs that you wrote, or either wrote by yourself or helped wrote. And this is the first time I don't know what songs we're going to play beforehand. Like with Sean, he told me ahead of time. But this one, I'm like, I'm just going to let Deke tell me as we go.
Secret. So you've got all the albums, so
you pick a song and talk about kind of what went into writing it, and then we'll play it for the fans.
Let's start off. I figure I'll go big and open. I tell people all the time when I do songwriting seminars or talk to them, like I say, like, you have to write what you know, and it has to mean something to you and be powerful, because then that'll come through the song. And even if people don't understand exactly what the lyrics are referring to or whatever, your sincerity and the choices you make around the music will end up creating something that has some emotional power, and your performance of it and recording of it will have a conveyance, or connect to people. And that's why people listen to music. Nice. They don't listen to music because it's technically perfect. They listen to music because the way it makes them feel.
Yes.
So the first thing I want to go to is... let's bring out the daddy issues. It's called After You, and it's on the album that we made around 2000 with the amazing Bill Hare, called Unbroken. Concept album. We really based this album around the idea of something like Queen Night at the Opera, which is far more popular now because of the Bohemian Rhapsody movie and the real resurgence of interest in Queen. But when we made it, I think Queen was just like, did a couple songs on the radio. People enjoyed them. One of my favorite albums of all time. Incredibly diverse album. And yet the songs take you on this like whiplash journey from place to place to place. And they really connect and flow through each other. And that's what we were doing with this album. In fact, the sound never breaks from start to finish. And the fade out at the end of the last song is exactly the figure that fades in. So if you listen to the CD, not just, tracks on your phone that are on screen, jumble or whatever, but if you're just listening to it and you had it, in the player, it would end the song and fade down and start back at the beginning and fade up, and it would just keep going.
Nice.
And it was about tradition and also like our first album, Naked Noise, about showing all of the different things that a cappella can do and that we had to say. So my relationship with my father was a complicated one. I loved him very much, but unfortunately I grew up without him. He and my mother had an acrimonious divorce when I was young, so I really was not in contact with him at all from about age 7 until high school, and then I got to know him again. He was a very proud man. He grew up without any money, but he became like the top stockbroker at Dean Witter way back in the late 60s, early 70s, and really wanted to get in mergers and acquisitions, but they refused him. It was an all old boys network, think the Mad Men days and all of that kind of like, he didn't go to the right country club or whatever, even though he was brilliant. And so they said, no, we really want to keep you where you are. And he's like, forget it, and just walked away from the whole thing.
Wow.
Tried a couple of other careers, but then he just threw up his hands. And by age 40, he was retired. He had enough money. I mean, he wasn't wealthy by any stretch of the imagination, but he didn't have to work. He made enough money that he could just kind of live off of the savings in a modest lifestyle. And that wasn't me.
Okay.
That wasn't me. And I think, through the song's lyrics, you can hear that I'm wrestling with this idea of how am I to be different and change this kind of family legacy. And his relationship with his father was difficult and whatnot. And how do I right this ship? So that's After You.
Okay. Well, hey, let's check it out. Here's the House Jacks with After You, written by our guest, Deke Sharon.
When I lie here and wait of another one, breathing in, we begin, weighing the cost of a loss we'll never win. What am I to do? What am I after you? What am I to do after you? Now the line becomes a line. Over and over and echoing the standard time. And I choose not to lose this love. Never again has been said, but remains new. What am I to do? What am I after you? What am I to do after you? Changing your habits, making amends, finding the strength of family and friends. Still I'm swimming in answers, washing the memory. There's too much of you in me. What am I to do? What am I after you? What am I to do after you?
And that was After You by the House Jacks. And we're chatting here with Deke Sharon, our special guest on our 200th episode, and talking about some songs he's written and kind of what went into writing him, and kind of, where he was and what he was thinking about, and how that song came about. So what's the next song you have for us, Deke?
Okay, now we're going to jump forward to our album Level, which was very forward-thinking, modern mixing techniques and tracking, whatever. Rupak Ahuja and the group did most of the tracking and made a lot of great choices and overdubs and whatever. And then we sent it off to the legendary Ed Boyer, who, good friend, I worked with him on Pitch Perfect films, whatever. And there's the album definitely leaned into the future and all. And it was time for another heartbreaking ballad about the generations of the Sharon family. This one about my son. He was, as many kids do, they've hit some kind of a roadblock. For him, it was fourth grade, and he had some learning differences, and he was at a fancy prep school and had to repeat a grade. And then the teacher's like, this isn't right for him. He's got challenges, dyslexia and attention deficit disorder and whatever, and all of these difficulties, but he was really smart and very talented. And then finally they were like, this isn't the right school for you. And, this led to a lot of emotional upheaval with him or whatever. Long story short, we ended up finding the best school in the whole Bay Area for him, which was the Pacific Boy Choir Academy. And I knew the director, and Cap went there, and from the fourth grade through the eighth grade, he traveled every summer and performed with the symphony, and spent one summer in Russia, another one in Brazil, and, made albums and sang at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. for the Nelson Mandela Memorial Service. And he sang a solo, like the greatest thing in the world for him.
Cool.
Went on to School of the Arts, and then just graduated from Bob Cole Conservatory down at Long Beach. And now a year out of school, is very successful. He already making a career as a professional musician. So Cap Sharon is doing it, and he got over this bump. But there's just nothing harder when you're a parent than when your kid is in a tough time and you're not really able to move the levers. And I wasn't one of those bulldozer parents. I didn't really want to either. Like, I was the dad who'd go in and sit down with the parents and be like, listen, please, if my kid doesn't hand in his homework, please give him a 0 and fail him. And the teachers would look at me with big wide eyes and their jaws would fall. I said, yes. And if there's, I'm not going to side with my kid against you. Like, you're the teacher. We need to, set the boundaries. And they were like, can I hug you? Because so many parents now are just smoothing your road and trying to take care of all the problems for the kids. And these poor kids, go out into the world in their early 20s and they don't know how to make their way through. So Cap definitely, he overcome and bested these challenges. And yet this song is really kind of a time capsule of the anguish, the heartache of what it was like to see him in such crisis and let him know that things will be better. The song is called All Away. And now that you know the story about him and whatnot, I think you'll pick up on pretty clearly what it means, and references to Elysian Fields being, a little smile about how much he was into Greek mythology at the time and the Percy Jackson novels and things like that.
Nice. All right, well, here we go. Here's All the Way by the House Jacks.
I wish I could understand your heart and your head, the worry and the dread, the highs and the lows, but that's how it goes. I wish I could lend a hand, fearing and feeling, wrestling and reeling, the problems in your day, and wish them all the way, all the way, all the way.
And that was the House Jacks, was all the way from their Level CD. And we are chatting with our special guest, Deke Sharon. And before we get to our third song of this week's episode and our 200th episode, I definitely want to ask you, I'm just kind of curious, you started the House Jacks, was it 90 or 91 you started the House Jacks?
It was in the fall of 91. I had just graduated. I gave the guys the summer off. Their parents called me the Pied Piper. And I got them all to move from the various spots on the East Coast and different college a cappella groups. Come out to San Francisco for a year. We're going to try it for 1 year. Make that investment. Make this our first priority after you make whatever money you need to for your day job. And I was lucky enough to be making enough money from all the arranging I was doing. Okay. Everybody else was scrambling and doing their day jobs, selling cardboard boxes or whatever the heck it was. And then we'd get together in the evenings and rehearse and start gigging as much as we could. And by the end of the year, it was like, absolutely, we're going to keep going. By a year and a half, we were full time.
Wow.
So it was a pretty quick trajectory and a different time than now. I know it's difficult for groups to launch now. And there's less money in music and people are not buying albums. They're just streaming music and et cetera, et cetera. But we did our best to try to show what this new kind of a cappella could be like. And we had a record deal. We got signed to Warner Brothers Tommy Boy Records and 3 years and made all these tracks and whatnot. And in the end, they were like, we love your music, but we can't market you. We have no idea what to do with this. And it was our college agent who wisely said, if people could see you, you would be enormous.
Yep.
But if they can't see you, they can't tell that it's a cappella and it doesn't, there's no marketing hook. There's no clear angle they have. And guess what? It was YouTube, Straight No Chaser, Pentatonics, all of these groups, Voice Play. YouTube changed the game for a cappella. Of course, the sing off, of course, Pitch Perfect or whatever.
Yes.
But YouTube is the engine that allows groups to launch and whatever. And alas, we were that generation before.
Yeah. I know so many of the groups that I used to go and see live. I mean, there was times where I was literally seeing Foreshadow like 8-9 times a year, and Marku Corner 12 times a year, and Impulse and all these groups, and Tonic Sofa, and it's like some of those groups are still going in one form or another, and so many of them have either gone away. I mean, there was at one point, I remember it was like 2006, 2007. There was 11 full-time professional a cappella groups based in Minnesota.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's great.
I think there's one now, or maybe two.
Maybe two. COVID definitely kicked everybody in the teeth. But the thing that has happened is when I graduated college and started CASA, there were maybe 200 and 225 college a cappella groups across the nation. Now there are well over 3,000. Wow. So for what we've lost in the ease of having these, pro groups be full-time and touring around and all that, we've gained tenfold in the number of scholastic groups. And it's just growing and growing, which is so heartening. Many more people are singing, and there are more choirs, and barbershop is on the upswing, and kind of the weekend warrior groups and whatever are doing great. So it's still rolling along.
Yeah. And I tell you, one of my biggest pet peeves, and I know I've joked about you with this in the past, is, all my kids have done music and choir and theater and everything, and going to one of their choir concerts and looking down and seeing your name as the arranger and getting so excited for that song to come up, and then the piano starts. I'm like, what?
What?
Can't put a piano on a Deke Sharon. And I actually, my son's freshman year, I actually kind of got in an argument with his choir instructor. I'm like, you can't put a piano on a Deke Sharon. And she's like, who's Deke Sharon?
That's hilarious.
I know.
Well, I will say that maybe they hide the piano when I get nearby, but that is almost never, ever, ever happening.
Really?
The vast majority. Oh yeah, no, people are performing all over the place.
I've pushed my kids' choir instructors to do more a cappella and try to, and it's like, no, come on.
Oh, it's all over the place. I know Rob Dietz is the national chair for, pop and jazz music in the American Choral Association. And there's a huge push inside the organization now and legitimacy for and of contemporary a cappella. And I used to think people were turning their nose up at it. Mm-hmm. A lot of directors, no, they're terrified of it because it's not easy.
Yeah.
You're singing without a net. And yet there are definitely arrangements that are easy and for groups at all different levels. But the bottom line is a lot of those old vocal jazz groups and the glee clubs and the show choirs are kind of converting over into contemporary a cappella. And there are lots of festivals out there and whatever. So it's also huge growth.
Well, the closest we have, our high school does have a vocal jazz group, but even them, every now and then they'll throw a piano in there, and I cringe.
Well, of course.
I know,
yeah. But that, So long as they're singing, that's what matters. Yeah.
To this day, one of my favorite concerts ever, I think it was my middle son's, one of his senior concerts. I looked down on the sheet, and not only did I see your name, but then there were 2 songs below yours was one by Timothy Jones. And I was like, oh, wow. Seriously? 2 people I know. That arranged it. It was his pirate song, and it was freaking hilarious.
Fantastic. The acapella world is such a wonderful place. I tell people all the time, the narcissists and the sociopaths and whatever, they self-select out. Like, you got to work well with other people. You got to, it's people who love creating something that's bigger than the individual. And so the friends you make, wherever they are, however long ago, you see them 20 years later, and it's like no time has passed, and you're catching up. And I smile. I get texts from people. At Easter, I got a text from Tim, the bass and Home Free, and you're just like, oh yeah, oh my god, how are you doing? Exactly. So it's a big happy family out there.
I first met Tim when he was in Blue Jupiter, and then I remember I went and saw with my cousin to go see Home Free, and this was 5 years before the sing off. And I'm just walking up to the stage before the show starts, and I hear, Brian? I look, and it's Tim. I'm like, when the hell did you join this group? so yeah, it's like, people know each other and everything. So I randomly, same with Rob, because Rob I had seen in Foreshadow a few years before. And then it's like, suddenly he's with Home Free too. I'm like, what the heck? So good times. All right, well, let's get close to the end of the show. Not quite yet, but let's hear about your third song that you want to talk about.
Excellent. Okay, well, so we've had 2 songs of generational trauma, right? now the coast is clear, and the clouds have passed. And this third song comes from an album called Pollen. I had this idea. We've done different albums with different themes, and always really wanted to make this the album more than just a collection of songs. Mm-hmm. Well, for this album, my thought was, we've traveled around the world so much. We have so many friends, and I have so many friends in different a cappella groups in different countries. How fun would it be to do yet another all originals album? Because that was, House Jack's core. We occasionally would do a cover tune. It was really about showing the world like original a cappella is a strong, wonderful thing. And let's write these original songs. Let's arrange them up. And then let's get one of our friends in a different country, another group, and have them then add their own voices on it, do their own arrangements, add all this additional stuff and background vocals and, counter melodies and all these harmonies. And thus the album Pollen was born. It was the last album the group has made, last one I did with the group before I had to leave because I got too busy with movies, television, blah, blah, blah. And very proud of it. And song after song make me smile because, very often when you make an album, you can't really listen to it for like 30 years. too much work in there. You hear all the cracks. It's like when people cook food for you, it's better than the food you cook. It doesn't matter how good a cook you are. You know the secret, like, you know what I mean? And you're testing it and trying to make it like, and when somebody else, presents you with it, you can just experience it for what it is. And you can't do that when you slave over all the details on a recording. But with Pollen, it's a little different because it was like this wonderful group collaboration. And the song I want you to play was the result of me falling in love with bossa nova way back when I was in college and listening to it all the time while I'm cooking, in fact. And so one of our friend groups was the amazing BR6 down in Brazil. Mm-hmm. And I thought, it'd be great to do a bossa nova. And if you're going to do that, of course you're going to have a group from Brazil on it with their amazing percussion and just their sense and the timing. And it's a culture possibly second to none, maybe better even than, America when it comes to just the permeation of music through their veins. So I thought this will be the collaboration. And I've rarely had a bigger smile on my face than when we got back the initial tracks that they added on top of it. Mm-hmm. So I arranged up, and I've got a new book coming out that's Acapella Arranging 2.0 with Dylan Bell, kind of the follow-up to the first Acapella Arranging book. And I talk a little bit about this arrangement because I was basing it on the great Klaus Ogerman arrangements that are in the Antonio Carlos Jobim albums like Wave, where you just have these lush and beautiful layers of strings and horns and keyboards. And so I put down all these different layers and then, made that whole orchestration. And I was, very happy with it. But then they sang over the top of it. And you're like, okay, nice. Now we've got a bossa nova tune. So, Thank you for listening through 2 heartfelt ballads. Now it's time to go down to the beach and grab a caipirinha and just enjoy the sound of the waves and Quiet Moon.
All right, and here's the House Jacks with Quiet Moon.
Remember me? I'm that guy you fell in love with across the sea. When the world was wide and oceans could divide, we would stand at the shore and be side by side. Let's go down to the sea where the waves set us free and the world lets us be. Just you and a quiet moon and me. And now you're here, sharing hopes and dreams and love year after year. As the time floats by, I miss those simple days, you and I, like the tide, gently slip away. Let's go down to the sea, where the wind sets us free, and the world lets us be. Just you and a quiet moon.
And that was the House Jacks with Quiet Moon with our final song on our 200th episode. Before we let Deke go, one question I've always kind of wanted to ask, and I'm sure a lot of people probably asked you this, but do you think we'll ever get a version of the Sing-Off back?
Wow, it's a great question, and one obviously that I've spent many late nights thinking about. The fundamental challenge is, well, first of all, NBC squandered it. If they kept it in December, it's probably still be on the air today.
Mm-hmm.
They had a new guy, Bob Greenblatt, who became the head of NBC. He wanted to make Monday night's reality show night, and he just threw the Sing-Off in the fall Monday slot without the proper preparation.
Yeah.
And so we started the show against the semifinals of Dancing with the Stars, and it's like, you don't do that, you know. It was just a mess, and our viewership went down. So then the problem also with networks is for the past 20 years, they've just been constantly losing market share and losing viewers for a variety of reasons. And now people are cutting the cable and they're just not watching shows and they're streaming things. So each year is less and less and less. So rather than, taking a show that even when the viewership went down, because the first year we were the highest unscripted show on NBC. And then the second year was like the third highest rated show across the entire network. Like, we were killing it and people loved it. But then even with the lower numbers, we had totally respectable numbers and they could have kept us on, but they kept flushing shows away and trying to swing for the rafters, trying to get their next Friends or something like that. So sadly, only got to make the 5 seasons. I did it also in China, mainland China, and South Africa and the Netherlands. And it was absolutely a dream come true. And the friendships and the music and the growth in a cappella from that show is tremendous. And Pentatonics now fills arenas, stadiums. So dream come true. Amazing that we got to do it, but it's expensive.
Yeah.
You're flying a number of people and they're all living in a hotel together. And the shiny floor shows you see now, it's all soloists or one person in a quiz show. Like they're trying to use a lot of CGI and make it look a lot flashier and like a lot more, but their expenses are actually really low. Or reality shows, which don't cost them anything, getting all their quote unquote talent, people throwing things at each other, whatever, for free. So I think it's possible, but unlikely. And still pitching shows, still out there. This being a radio show, I shouldn't probably tell you about one that was very close, but then since we've gone past peak television or whatever, everybody's pulling back. So that's kind of frozen on blocks. Don't know if it'll come back to life as an idea, but it was internal to the network. So it's not never per se, but
unlikely.
It's a heavier lift. Yeah. And anytime I sniff anything like happening anywhere around the world, I will very gladly do everything I can to help make it happen.
Nice. Well, before I let you, and first of all, seriously, thank you. I know how busy you are, and I truly appreciate you doing this.
No.
And I was so bummed when you were in Minnesota, and I had to work and couldn't knock it down to actually meet you in person. It was very sad. But,
that's for the Flyover Fest. It's going to happen again next year. It was a huge success, and in fact,
awesome.
The host group sang so beautifully. I posted a little video of theirs on my Facebook page, and we're at 500,000 views now from a group singing on risers, The Sound of Silence. But there's a real need. People need a cappella. It's honest. It's truthful. It's powerful and connecting. And so there's still just such a desire for this music. And so keep building it, and it will keep coming.
And hopefully next year I can make that one. If they can get me the date far enough ahead of time, I can work it out. And
it was also a beautiful festival because it's a blend of high school and college and adult groups, which you almost never see that kind of demographic cross section. But when I was doing my coachings with the groups, and I coached every single group there, all 16 or whatever, they'd be paired up. So one group would sing and then the other would watch. And it's much better that way because you learn as much watching as you do doing. And then they'd swap. And the mix, we'd have older and younger singers or whatever. They'd learn so much from each other. Really, really great format. So it's here to stay. Flyover Fest.
Awesome.
Be there. Early 2025.
We'll talk about it when it's closer. We'll put links out for everything. And seriously, from the bottom of my heart, thank you again for doing this. And hopefully I'll still be here for 300 episodes. We'll see.
My pleasure. Yes. I look forward to listening to all 300.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
And that's going to wrap up this week's episode of Uncovered Acapella. I'm your host, Brian Michaels. Be sure to subscribe where your favorite podcasts are available. If you really enjoy the show, we'd appreciate it if you leave us a review. So until next time, I'm Brian Michaels with Uncovered Acapella.